Part 1. The one text that didn't belong. I'm a 34M from the US. My wife, 29F, is a professional model, the kind you've definitely scrolled past without realizing she's a person with a dentist appointment, a favorite cereal, and a real husband at home who vacuums the stairs on Tuesdays. We've been married 3 years, together for 7. She's the face of a skincare brand, the muse of at least 2 photographers, and the girl in that perfume ad where a silk scarf flies off a rooftop like it's catching a ride on the moon. Her passport has more stamps than our fridge has magnets. Milan, Paris, Dubai, Tokyo, Madrid. I got used to airport codes on our calendar like they were zodiac signs. Ulchar, CDG, Doe. For the first year of our marriage, it felt romantic. I packed her snacks, almond butter packets that always exploded, tucked little notes into her shoe bags, tracked her flights like a doting air traffic controller. We had a routine when she landed. FaceTime from a hotel window, 3 stories up, light so wide it flattened everything into a postcard. She'd wave, blow a kiss, and I'd press 2 fingers to the camera like a fool. It's funny how betrayal doesn't come in like thunder. It slinks in wearing your favorite sweater and asks what you want for dinner. The first off note was a scarf. A white scarf that wasn't hers. Not a logo scarf. Not from the sea of brand gifts that sometimes get dumped on our kitchen table like a fashion piñata exploded. This one was soft, no tag, slightly frayed on one end like it had been worn enough to have a memory. It was looped once around the handle of her carry-on when I picked her up from arrivals after a quick 3-day in Paris. She hugged me, and I made some stupid joke about her coming home with a French ghost. She laughed, kissed me, and said a stylist gave it to her because the wind on the bridge shot was like knives. We put the scarf in the hall closet. It smelled faintly of someone else's cologne, something woodsy, like cedar and smoke. I told myself it was a stylist's boyfriend's scent or a makeup artist's new thing. The world she lived in could smell like anything. The second note, a receipt. Paper. Cheap thermal curl that tried to roll back into itself on our kitchen counter. She came home late from a campaign and dumped the contents of her tote while searching for her AirPods. Receipts, call sheets, lip liner caps, a plastic boarding pass sleeve from Qatar. She went to shower. I gathered the mess, smoothed the receipts into a stack, because I am a person who believes in drawers and order. The top receipt was from a restaurant in Milan. La Scala Trattoria. Not that La Scala, but clearly leaning into the association. 2 entrees, 2 cocktails, 1 dessert. Time stamped 23:41. Date lined up with the night. She texted me that she was dead tired. Room service, lights out early. I stared at it too long. The paper blurred. I told myself, again, that her team eats weird. Models split pasta like they split hair ties. The cocktails could be for the client or the photographer or whoever people are when the bill comes and everyone performs the reaching for wallet pantomime. I slid it into her receipts envelope for expenses and told myself not to be paranoid. I have never been an insecure person. I'm tall enough, fit enough, decent looking in the way that matters to exactly one person. I write code for a living. I'm good at logic puzzles, bad at confrontation. My wife has always been the theater kid to my math club. She talks with her hands. I diagram feelings quietly until the lines straighten. The third note wasn't a note at all. It was the absence of one. We share a calendar. Not because we're joiners, but because once, early on, I missed a flight to meet her in Miami. My fault. My snooze button, and she spent the weekend shooting on a beach without me. Now we sync. I add my releases and sprints. She drops in her chutes, flights, fittings. For Tokyo, there was a block, off-site, NDA. I didn't blink. She's had NDAs before. Everything in her world is embargoed until it can have a slow-motion reveal in smoky grayscale. But when I tapped it open, out of work habit more than curiosity, there was no flight number like she usually includes, no hotel, no time zone note. Just off-site, NDA, spanning Wednesday to Sunday, pinned to Tokyo. When she landed in Tokyo, blued out over Haneda in the app we both use, she texted me a photo from a ramen shop. First bowl back, my religion. A line of steam erased half her face, which felt appropriate for a woman who shares her face with millions of strangers. I sent back a heart and tried not to prod. It is a mature, loving thing to let your spouse have a life that doesn't need your commentary. That night, or what was night for me, my phone pinged at 3:12 a.m. The tone was hers, but the content wasn't. The message popped up in the preview because I'm an idiot who never changed that setting. Landed. Same suite as last time. 6:15. I'll leave the scarf on the handle. Winky face. The sender was saved as L, just one letter, no emoji. The message was not to me. It was to the shared iCloud, the one my wife's iPad, which I was using to stream a playoff game while I couldn't sleep. Apparently still received when she forgot to uncheck text forwarding. The blood left my face so thoroughly it felt like a magic trick. A curtain lifted. Scarf on the handle. Suite 615. Same as last time. I stared at that notification like it might morph into an ad for socks. It didn't. I swiped up. A tiny preview of previous messages. Just one before it. Flight was smooth. I'll be quick at customs. I didn't tap into the thread. I couldn't. My finger hovered, burning like a kid over a stove coil. There are 1,000 roads a person can take in that moment. Rage, confrontation, denial, self-destruction. I took the one I'm trained to take. I made a list. 1. Scarf, not hers. 2. Milan receipt. 2 entrees the night, she claimed room service. 3. Shared calendar block, vaguer than usual. 4. Text from L, same suite as last time, scarf on the handle. 5. Her device settings, forwarding still on for iPad at home, my hands. 6. My state, borderline insane, but still in the room. I put the iPad down like it was a live grenade and went to the sink. Ran water. Breathed. When it was light out, I brewed coffee I didn't drink and opened my laptop. Logic puzzle time. First, Suite 615. Tokyo hotels aren't hard to narrow if you know the brand she favors. My wife is a points person in a casual way. She hates packing cubes, but knows exactly which chain upgrades her to a corner room. I know two she likes in Tokyo because she once gloated about a heated toilet seat that has better manners than half of Brooklyn. I pulled up both hotels. One doesn't have a 6th floor. The floors skip because of a numbering superstition. The other does. Their suites are named after cities, not numbers, except the executive level, which uses numbers. I called the second hotel, heart pounding like I'd sprinted. I wasn't going to ask if my wife was in 615. That's stalker territory, and also they can't tell me. I asked about flowers. Hi, my wife is staying with you, and I'd love to have flowers in her suite 615. Can I do that without a room number? She's under a different name than mine, though. The front desk agent sighed in the way bored angels must sigh. Sir, we can definitely do that if you have her name. I do, I said and gave it. Typing. Clicking. Muzak. I'm sorry, she said, polite as porcelain. I don't have that guest. Could it be booked under her agency? I asked. I gave that name. More typing. We do have 3 rooms under the agency block, but number 615. And none are suites. Would you like us to take your number? And no, I said. Thank you. I hung up. Either wrong hotel, wrong city, or suite 615 wasn't Tokyo at all. The message had been vague. Landed. Same suite as last time. Which last time? Where? The scarf had been from Paris, or so she said. But the receipt that bugged me was Milan. The scarf might be a decoy, I handed to myself. I went back to the iPad. The message from Elle was still there, chilling on the lock screen like a dare. I told myself that if I opened it, I couldn't unknow what was inside. That's true. But also, if I didn't, I'd keep guessing, which is its own kind of dying. I opened it. The thread was short. 5 messages across 2 months. 2 were logistics, flights, customs, same suite. 1 was a link to a restaurant. 1 was a raven black photo with a white blur I decided was a scarf. And 1 was a single line, 2 weeks old. You made Paris bearable. Next time, no work. Just us. No names, no pet names, no explicit filth. Conspiratorial brevity. The kind of thing you write if you live in worlds where NDAs are the oxygen and you can't leave fingerprints. My first thought was not she's cheating. It was how many times. That felt uglier. The day lurched forward like a car with a stuck gear. I worked, or pretended to. I wrote code that passed tests and failed to satisfy the quiet part of my brain shouting all the time. I checked the flight tracker. In the app, her dot moved over the Pacific. She had 12 hours where I could do nothing but think dangerous thoughts. I made a sandwich, took 1 bite, threw it away. At hour 4, I did something I am not proud of. I logged into her airline account. It wasn't stealth. I set it up for her. I know her logins because I'm the person who resets them at midnight while she's in a fashion camper in the desert yelling about dust storms. Her Tokyo flights were real. Booked. Assigned seats. Frequent flyer number attached. But something glitched the page when I clicked trip details. The screen flashed, then loaded an earlier itinerary. Paris, last month. On that page, down at the bottom under additional services, there was a tab I'd never noticed. Companion details. I clicked. No companion booked, it said. Then, in small gray type. Note. Companion status applies to spouse or partner if linked on file. Spouse or partner. I sat back like the page had slapped me. I clicked back to home. Her upcoming trips showed more than I expected. 2 extra holds that never ticketed. 1 to Zurich, 1 to Milan. Dates 2 months apart. I toggled between them and noticed something else. On the Milan hold, there was a note under special requests, hold for agency. Room block, Hotel Il Giardino. I searched it. The property used room numbers, not names. Photos of their executive floor trickled in. 1 spoiler from a travel blog. Best suite is 615. Double balcony, tucked away, discreet. My stomach did a slow roll. I copied the hotel name and did something rash. I booked a fully refundable room for next week, 2 nights. Not because I planned to go to Milan next week, though the part of my brain that likes logic puzzles also likes plane tickets. I did it because booking gave me access to the app's floor plan and room directory. I needed to see if 615 was real. It was. Corner suite, L-shaped balcony, door photographed with a scarf looped around one of the brass handles like a stylized flourish. Not white, cream, in filtered light, the kind of detail you squint at to decide if you're inventing it. I canceled the reservation. My phone buzzed with the sorry to see you go email like a friend trying, and failing to keep you at a party. I could have called a friend. Instead, I talked to the vacuum while I pushed it over the stairs because the house needed to feel like I had control over something. I made the bed with military corners and then immediately tore one corner loose. Because who was I trying to impress? I stood in the closet and stared at the white scarf like it might confess. There's something dirty about making your spouse's absence into a treasure hunt. Every clue you find shrinks the person and inflates your own sense of righteousness. It's addictive. I was already addicted. At 6:22 p.m., my phone pinged with a fraud alert from our credit card. Suspicious activity in Tokyo. A charge for rose plus thorn flowers. I clicked. The amount wasn't huge. It was scheduled for delivery to Suite 615, Hotel K, not the one I called earlier, with a note. For L. A white scarf to match. R. R. My wife's initial. White scarf to match. I sat down. The house hummed around me, oblivious. I called the credit card company, hands steady in the way surgeons describe right before doing something impossible. Hi, I'm calling because there's a charge from Tokyo I didn't authorize. Yes, I'm on the account. Yes, I can confirm the last 3 transactions. Starbucks, hardware store, then the flower place in Tokyo. The last one is not me. We reversed it. The rep apologized. I hung up and stared at the pending reversal like it was a confession rendered in Helvetica. I texted my wife, "How's the jet lag?" She replied 12 minutes later, bubbly as always. Brutal LOL. We just ate. I'm gonna crash so hard. Love you. Call you in the AM. What did you have? I wrote. I never asked that. I hate small talk about food. But I needed to see her lie about something harmless. Soup, she said. Miso. So good. I Googled the restaurant attached to the Hotel K. Their menu had no miso. It had fancy ramen and sashimi flown in at great expense. It had a signature cedar-smoked old-fashioned. I closed the page. I have never hated cedar in my life. But in that moment, I felt like setting a forest on fire. The next morning, I did 2 things I never thought I'd do. I ordered an AirTag and I called a guy I barely know because we were in a group chat once about bad coffee. He's a photographer, not one of her usual, but adjacent. We'd traded memes. He'd sent me a playlist once. He also travels constantly and knows who's sleeping with whose shadow in that world. You good? He said. His voice has the easy smoke of someone who never has to call you back if he doesn't want to. Can I ask you something off the record? I said, voice of a man pretending he knows what records even exist between friends of friends. Off the record is my religion, he said, amused. Do you know L? I gave the letter. Like an initial. European guy, connected, spends time in Milan, Paris. Wears cedar when cedar isn't called for. He laughed. It wasn't kind. That narrows it down a half of Fashion Week. What? I found a message to my wife from L. He's talking about Suite 615. He went quiet. Not long, but long enough for me to hear him choosing which version of the truth to offer. There's a guy, he said finally. Real name is long and unspellable. Everyone calls him L. Money from. I want to say freight or containers. Something boring that pays well. He likes to pretend he funds film. He throws dinners in Milan each season. Very private. If your wife is in that circle, it's not, career-wise, it's not necessarily a weird thing. Is it a cheating thing? I asked, because sometimes you have to name the ghost. Sometimes, he said, blunt as an X-ray. Sometimes it's just sponsorships and late-night pasta. Sometimes it's other stuff. I've heard of the scarf thing. The what? My body forgot to breathe. Look, man, I'm sorry you're in this. I've got to jump, but if you want advice, don't go nuclear on a hunch. The machine protects its own. If she's in deep, there are NDAs thicker than steak. Thanks, I said, hating his tone and needing it. The AirTag came. I synced it to my phone, named it Spare Charger, and set it on the counter like it was a salt shaker. I cooked dinner for one and put the AirTag in a silk pouch embroidered with her initials, the one she keeps her hairpins in. Because if you want to catch a fish, put the hook in the food it already eats. When she flew home 3 days later, I was normal. I took her suitcase like I always do. I asked about the flight and the seat and the turbulence over Alaska that makes her swear off flying for about 6 hours. She kissed me like people kiss in commercials, and I tried not to flinch. She showered. I unpacked. I slipped the silk pouch back into her cosmetics tote with the speed and terror of a teenage burglar in his own house. My phone buzzed to tell me the AirTag had left my proximity. Good, I thought. Leave me. Tell me. In bed, she curled into me and said, I missed you. You smell like cedar, I said before I could stop it. She laughed into my chest. The hotel lobby bar did this cedar smoke thing over the drinks. It gets everywhere. Sounds nice, I said. It was, she said. 2 days later, she said Paris again, like it was a chore. Quick campaign. Back Sunday. I kissed her at the curb and watched her vanish into the sliding glass like smoke. I went home. I opened Find My and watched the AirTag travel without me. Through security, onto a plane, across the water. The first ping in Paris wasn't the airport. It was a private terminal on the other side of the tarmac. I zoomed in until the satellite image pixelated into glitter. The tag moved from the terminal to a car. The car stopped at Il Giardino. My hands went cold. My phone buzzed again. A new message on the iPad I deliberately left at home. Face down, volume off, but not off enough. L, room 615. Elevator needs the black key. White scarf on the handle. I stared at the phone, at the dot, at the ghost of a scarf looped through a brass handle 13 time zones away, and decided that whatever this was, I wasn't going to solve it by asking nicely across a table. I booked a flight. Not to Paris. To Milan. Because if there had been a sweet 6:15 last time, I wanted to see the original crime scene. I wanted to stand in the hallway and smell the cedar or the lye. I packed a backpack with ridiculous care. 2 shirts, 1 jacket, a toothbrush, a notebook. I left a note for myself on the counter. Be certain, not dramatic. Then I took a picture of it. In case I needed to remember future me, try to be a good man. On the plane, I didn't watch a movie. I scrolled back through my own camera roll. Birthdays, beaches, the night she fell asleep on my shoulder wearing cake frosting like war paint. I reminded myself that love exists and isn't canceled by evidence. It's complicated by it. I landed, didn't sleep, showered in a sink at the airport like a college kid in a bad movie, and Ubered into the city. I walked into Il Giardino like I belonged there, because rich people don't ask permission to be rich. The lobby smelled like lemons and money. I rode the elevator to the 6th floor with my pulse in my ears. The plaque outside 615 was brass and buffed. There was no white scarf, just a gleaming handle and a peephole that watched me back. I put my ear to the door and heard nothing but the air conditioner's civilization. I stood there too long. A housekeeper rounded the corner with a cart and smiled with professional warmth. Buongiorno, she said. Hi, I said. Is this the suite with the double balcony? She nodded. See. Is it occupied? The word tasted bad. She flicked her eyes down to her cart, then back at me. Check out at 11, she said. but sometimes they stay. Right? I said, like that meant something. I turned away. I didn't have a plan for if she said yes or no. I had a hallway and a heart problem. When I looked back, she was watching me again, considering. Then she lifted a corner of the cover on her card, pointed to a small pile of left-behind things. A paper band from a bouquet. Hotels always strip flowers. The band had a logo, rose plus thorn, embossed in metallic ink. My breath left. She followed my eyes and smiled wryly. Romanticize, she said, making it plural, making it obvious. Right? I said again. I went down to the bar because men in stories go down to the bar. I ordered nothing. I stared at a bowl of olives like it had answers. My phone buzzed. A ping from the AirTag. Paris, still. Another ping. Paris, moving. Then a text. A number I didn't know, with a link to a photo. The preview showed a corner of a hotel door and something white. I tapped it open. It wasn't a scarf. It was a wedding veil, pinned to a door handle like a taunt, pinned with a note in that fluid, messy handwriting I know from grocery lists and love notes. Same suite. Same rules. Please don't knock. R. And under the note, in handwriting I didn't recognize, a single line. L. I didn't breathe. The bar around me became a diorama. Sound moved funny, slow. My phone buzzed again. A new message, this time from her. Baby, are you up? I couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about you. I stared at the two texts on my screen. The photo from an unknown number and the line from my wife. And I knew, with the kind of clarity you only get when something breaks clean, whatever I did next would be the point of no return. I took a screenshot of the photo, tucked my phone into my pocket, and stood up. I had a plan now. It wasn't nice. It was precise. And it started with the only friend I had in this city, the companion tab on her airline account, the hotel's lobby cameras, and a scarf that had stopped smelling like cedar and started smelling like gasoline. Part 2. The AirTag doesn't lie. When people talk about betrayal, they frame it like a single event. A crash, a scream, a door slamming. But that's not how it feels. It's not a lightning strike. It's erosion, water against stone. The trickle of doubt widening into a canyon you can't jump back across. That night in Milan, after the photo of the veil, I didn't sleep. I sat in the bar long after the olives dried out, and the ice in my glass melted into something that tasted like a mistake. My phone kept buzzing with AirTag pings from Paris, the dot drifting between a hotel and some side street. And with every vibration, my jaw clenched tighter. Because here's the thing, the AirTag wasn't lying. It was in her cosmetics pouch. It was in Paris. And if it was in Paris, then so was she. But the photo, the veil, the note signed, are in her handwriting. That wasn't Paris. That was here. Milan. I was standing in the middle of a contradiction. And contradictions mean somebody's running a con. The lobby trick. The next morning, I shaved in the hotel sink and put on my cleanest shirt like armor. I had a plan. Not a smart one, but a plan. Hotels, especially ones like Il Giardino, live and die by privacy. If you want to know who's really here, you don't ask at the desk. You watch the lobby. You wait for the elevator doors to open. You learn patience. So I waited. Hour 1, nothing but tourists. German couple with matching backpacks. American kids on a study abroad trip who looked allergic to quiet. Hour 2, a pair of men in dark suits walked through without looking around. They didn't carry bags. They carried themselves like they were protecting someone. Hour 3, the elevator chimed. A tall man stepped out. Dark hair, expensive jacket, the kind of casual wealth that screams louder than logos. He wasn't a celebrity, I would have recognized him. But he had that aura, like he'd never been told no in his life. He pulled a white scarf from his pocket, looped it over his hand once, and walked out into the street. My heart stalled. I followed. The cafe and the photograph. He didn't go far. Just across the square to a cafe with iron chairs and umbrellas too small for the heat. He ordered an espresso, leaned back, and scrolled his phone like he had all the time in the world. I sat 3 tables away, pretending to nurse a cappuccino. My hands shook every time I lifted the cup. I snapped a photo. Nothing fancy, just quick and low. His face, clear enough. Then I texted it. Not to my wife. I wasn't ready for that. I sent it to the only person who might know. The photographer friend I'd called before. Me, this him? This L. Friend. 3 dots. Then a pause. Then, Jesus. Yeah, that's him. Careful, man. Careful wasn't helpful. I wanted facts. Who was he? Why was he sitting here with a scarf that matched the breadcrumb trail I'd been choking on? I stood, tossed a bill on the table, and walked past him. Close enough to smell cedar again. My blood boiled. He looked up at me once, briefly, then looked straight through me like I was furniture. Like I was nothing. Back to the room. When I returned to the hotel, something had changed. Room 615's door was ajar. Not wide, just a crack, but enough to send adrenaline flooding my chest. I shouldn't have, but I did. I pushed it open. The suite smelled faintly of smoke and perfume. The bed was made, too perfectly, like staff had just passed through. On the table sat a champagne flute with lipstick smudged on the rim. Not hotel-issue lipstick. Hers. I knew that shade. She wore it on our anniversary dinner 2 months ago. Next to the glass was a flower card. The kind you tuck into bouquets. I picked it up with fingers that didn't feel like mine. For L. Until next time. R. My wife's handwriting. Unmistakable. The room tilted. I sat on the edge of the bed like an intruder in my own life. The AirTag mystery. I pulled up the tracker again. The AirTag still pinged in Paris. A map dot blinking in a cosmetics pouch that I knew was no longer in her hands. And then it clicked. She hadn't forgotten about the AirTag. She never even knew it existed, which meant someone else had it. Someone she trusted enough to carry her bag. Her assistant. The agency often paired her with a handler for trips, someone to run errands, keep her schedule, shield her from chaos. If the assistant flew to Paris with her bag and my wife detoured to Milan, that meant she had cover. Alibis built into the very machinery of her job. She didn't just cheat. She engineered it. The call. That night, back in my cheap rented room across town, I couldn't stand to stay at Il Giardino anymore. I did something reckless. I called her. She picked up on the second ring, her voice light, casual, like everything was normal. Baby. Hey, I was just thinking about you. Where are you? I asked, keeping my tone flat. In Paris. What? You sound tired, I said. Long day. The longest, she sighed. I can't wait to be home. I miss you. I stared at the note in my pocket. For L. Until next time. R. And I said, me too. Because sometimes the cruelest thing you can do is let a liar keep talking. The proof plan. When I hung up, my hands were steady. Steadier than they'd been in days. Because now I wasn't chasing shadows. I had proof in handwriting, in photos, in receipts, in AirTag trails. But proof doesn't matter if it's just me screaming into the void. I needed confirmation. Hard evidence. Something undeniable. So I made a plan. Step 1. Follow L. Document every move. Step 2. Get a name. Full name. Background. Connections. Step 3. Confront her not with suspicion, but with facts she can't explain away. Because love can make you doubt your eyes, but a liar can't debate a photograph. The moment. The next morning, I spotted him again. L. Leaving the hotel with a small entourage. He wasn't carrying bags. He was carrying himself like a man certain the world would carry them for him. I tailed them as far as the curb. Black Mercedes waiting. Tinted windows. He slid inside, scarf flicking like a signature. I snapped another photo. And for the first time since this began, I wasn't afraid. I was furious. Part 3. Patterns don't lie. You don't just wake up one morning and decide to become a detective in your own marriage. You slide into it. You stumble into it like falling down stairs. One clue turns into two. Two turn into a pattern. And once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. Following L. The man with the scarf. L. wasn't exactly hiding. People like him never do. They think the world is wallpaper, and they're the only real thing in the room. After Milan, after the champagne flute and the note in her handwriting, I decided following him was my best chance at truth. My wife could lie to me with a straight face. He didn't know I existed. That gave me an edge. I started small, tracking his movements online. His face appeared in tagged photos at industry events. Always on the periphery, never the star. He was the type who hosts a dinner but is never in the press release. When I zoomed in on one photo, taken at a rooftop party in Paris, I nearly dropped my phone. Behind him, blurry but unmistakable, was my wife's silhouette. Her posture, her laugh mid-motion, the way she held a wine glass, wrist slightly bent. The caption? Another great night with the Milan crew. Hashtag LaFamily, hashtag Sweet 615-inch. The hashtag hit like a gut punch. Sweet 615. A joke? An inside reference? Or a breadcrumb left without caring who picked it up? The assistant cover. I had to untangle the AirTag mystery. Why was her bag in Paris while she was clearly in Milan with him? I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Hannah, a friend of hers from the agency days. Someone who'd been cut off once my wife started climbing higher. Hannah had no loyalty left to her. I called her. Straight up. No small talk. Hannah, quick question. When models travel, do they always bring assistants? A pause. Then, not always. Only the ones who don't want to carry their own baggage. What? What about mine? She laughed, sharp and bitter. Yours? She always had a shadow. Usually a girl named Sasha. Blonde. Quiet. Did everything. You probably never met her. Wives don't usually introduce the help to the husband. The name was new. Sasha. I wrote it down. Where's she from? I pressed. Eastern Europe somewhere. Latvia, I think. Sweet kid, but pliable. Would follow your wife off a cliff if asked. That was it. That was the missing piece. The assistant flew with her bag, with the AirTag, to Paris. My wife slipped out in Milan to meet L, built-in alibi. It wasn't sloppy. It was deliberate. Receipts and rotations. I spent nights digging through credit card statements. Most charges were what I expected: flights, hotels, dinners. But sprinkled through were duplicate charges, 2 different restaurants billed on the same night in 2 different cities. Example: Tokyo, dinner for 1 at 8 p.m. Milan, wine bar, 2 drinks at 10 p.m. local time. Impossible, unless she had a double. Or an accomplice. The pattern was always the same. One modest, work-related expense paired with one indulgent, intimate one. The first was the cover. The second was the truth. I made a spreadsheet. Rows of deceit. I highlighted every suspicious entry in red. By the time I finished, the page looked like it was bleeding. The photographer again. I called my photographer contact again. This time, I didn't dance around it. Listen, I said. I found notes, photos, receipts. I know she's seeing Elle. How deep is this? He went quiet, then sighed. Man, you don't want to know. I already do. Okay, then hear this. Elle isn't just some guy. He bankrolls entire campaigns. He's the silent hand behind brands. If your wife's career exploded these past 3 years, it's because she's in his orbit. And once you're in, you don't get out clean. Orbit, I repeated. The word made her sound like a satellite. Something small spinning around a planet too heavy to escape. Why do you think all her shoots line up with his travel schedule? He added. That stopped me cold. I hadn't even checked. Look up his appearances. Charity galas, fashion weeks, yacht shows. Then cross-reference with her jobs. You'll see it. Cross-checking. So I did. I built another spreadsheet. Elle in Dubai, November. She had a fragrance launch. Elle in Tokyo, March. She had a couture week event. Elle in Paris, June. She had a skincare shoot. Elle in Milan, twice a year. Always campaign season. It was too neat. Too perfect. She wasn't just cheating. She was scheduling her entire professional calendar around him. Or maybe he scheduled it around her. Either way, they moved in tandem. And I was the idiot at home, packing almond butter packets and writing her notes. The photograph. The final break came through a stranger. I got a DM on Instagram from a burner account. No words, just a photo. It showed Elle at a private dinner. Dim lighting, candle glow. Next to him, head tilted, laughing, my wife. Her hand on his wrist. His scarf looped over the back of her chair. The caption burned. To love, to us. Sweet 615 forever. My stomach turned inside out. Whoever sent it knew. They wanted me to see. I replied, "Who are you?" No response. But it didn't matter. The evidence spoke louder than any name. The breakdown. That night, I sat in the dark with all the evidence spread around me. The scarf in my closet. The Milan receipt. The AirTag pings. The flower card in her handwriting. The DM photo. Each piece alone was a whisper. Together, they were a scream. And in that scream, I realized something brutal. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't one mistake. It was systemic, ongoing, orchestrated. She hadn't been faithful a single time she left the country. The call that changed everything. My phone buzzed close to midnight. Her name. I answered. "Baby," she said, her voice soft. Too soft. "I miss you so much. Only one more night, and I'll be home." I looked at the photo on my screen, her hand on Elle's wrist. The caption mocking me. And I said, steady, calm. Yeah, can't wait. Because now I had what I needed. The plan. The old me would have confronted her in tears, demanded answers, begged for honesty. But the man staring at the spreadsheets, the scarf, the notes, that man was done begging. I wanted precision, documentation, something so undeniable that when I confronted her, she couldn't twist it, couldn't gaslight me, couldn't play the part of the misunderstood artist. So I started planning. Step 1. Hire a PI to follow her on her next trip. Step 2. Collect photos, timestamps, hotel records. Step 3. Confront her in public, where she couldn't scream or storm away. Because if she was going to perform for Elle, then she could damn well perform for me when the curtain finally dropped. The ping. 2 days later, the AirTag pinged again. Not Paris. Not Milan. Dubai. I checked her calendar. Quick fragrance campaign. I checked Elle's schedule, the one I'd pieced together from blogs and event flyers. He was headlining a private investors gala that same weekend. Another perfect overlap. I smiled bitter. Because this time, I wasn't going to sit home. I was going to be there. The decision. That night, I bought a ticket to Dubai. I booked a cheap hotel miles from the glittering towers, a place she'd never expect me to be. And as I clicked confirm, I realized the truth. I wasn't just chasing proof anymore. I was chasing closure. Because whatever I found in Dubai, one thing was certain. My marriage, as I knew it, was already dead. Part 4. The curtain falls. You think you're ready for the truth. You spend weeks chasing scraps of it, chasing patterns, building timelines, connecting dots. But the moment you're standing in the middle of it, seeing it with your own eyes, something inside you dies in a way you can't prepare for. That was Dubai. That was the end. Arrival. Dubai was loud even at midnight. Glass towers stabbed the sky, neon bled into the desert air, and everywhere you turned, money dripped from the walls. I checked into a budget hotel on the outskirts. Peeling paint, thin curtains, a broken AC unit that rattled like a dying engine. Perfect. No one in her world would ever step foot here. I texted the PI I'd hired, a man named Khalid, recommended through a contact back in New York. He knew the city, knew the high-end haunts, and most importantly, he didn't ask why an American husband was suddenly in Dubai shadowing his supermodel wife. His first words to me when we met in the dingy lobby were blunt. If she's with Elle, you'll see it. He doesn't hide. Men like him think they own the night. The surveillance. Day 1, I stayed hidden. Let Khalid work. He messaged me updates, each one a dagger. 1:12 p.m. Your wife entered Burj Al Arab with female assistant. Elle spotted in lobby 10 minutes earlier. 2:30 p.m. Private suite reservation under Mason Group Holdings. Confirmed Elle's company. 6:45 p.m. Dinner booked at Oceano, underwater restaurant. 2 seats. Not business. At 8 p.m., Khalid sent the photo. It showed my wife in a silver dress, backless, hair pulled up, sitting across from Elle, champagne between them. The glow of blue aquariums casting their faces in liquid light. His hand rested on the table, 2 inches from hers. Close enough to brush. Close enough to claim. I stared at the photo until my hands shook. There it was. Not rumor, not suspicion. Reality. The trap. I could have stormed in then. Made a scene. Demanded answers. But no, not yet. That would give her the chance to lie, to twist, to cry her way out. I needed more. Something final. Something so undeniable that when I laid it down in front of her, the performance ended. So I told Khalid to follow them. To record everything. And he did. The suite. At 11:23 p.m., another ping from the AirTag. Burj Al Arab. Suite level. Khalid texted me again. They went up together. Not with assistant. Just them. Same elevator. Same floor. My stomach dropped. A second later, another message. A blurry shot of the suite door closing. Her figure slipping inside. I couldn't breathe. That was it. That was the final nail. The next morning, she called me at 9 a.m. Dubai time. I was still in my hotel room, staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering how a heart could hurt this much and still beat. Baby, she said brightly, shoot went amazing. You'll love the photos. I'll be home soon. Her voice was perfect, effortless. No tremor, no slip. I almost laughed. How could someone lie that cleanly? I kept my tone even. That's great. I can't wait. But in my head, I was already scripting the confrontation. The return. 2 days later, she flew back to New York. I stayed 1 day longer, just to breathe the same air without her shadow poisoning it. When I walked into our apartment, she was there, dressed down in sweats, hair in a bun, barefoot, playing the role of normal wife. She ran to hug me. I let her. Her arms around me felt like a trap. God, I missed you, she whispered. And all I could think was, your perfume smells like him. The performance. I waited a week. A week of silence, of pretending, of eating dinners while she told stories about shoots that were nothing but rehearsed lies. Meanwhile, Khalid sent me everything: photos, timestamps, videos of her holding Elle's arm as they entered the suite, laughing in restaurants, whispering close. I built a file, a dossier. I printed the receipts, the spreadsheets, the photos. I put them in a leather binder. The evidence of a second life. The confrontation. I chose a public place. A cafe she loved, one where she knew half the staff. We sat outside. She ordered an oat latte. I ordered black coffee. Halfway through, I slid the binder across the table. "What's this?" she asked, smiling. "Open it." She flipped the first page. The Milan receipt. Her smile faltered. The next page. The scarf photo. She swallowed. The AirTag logs. The Paris ping. Her hands shook. And then the photos from Dubai. Her in silver, Elle across from her. Her at the suite door. Her arm hooked around his. Her face drained of color. I leaned in. My voice steady. "How long?" Silence. 3 years, I said. The entire marriage. Was it ever real? Her eyes darted, searching for a script, for a line to play. But there was nothing left. Finally, she whispered, "It wasn't supposed to matter." The collapse. That sentence shattered me more than any admission of love for him. It wasn't supposed to matter. Meaning the marriage. Me. My life. I was the cover. The stability. The husband who looked good in photos, who made her seem grounded, relatable, human. While he was the empire, the money, the orbit she couldn't escape. 3 years. Every trip. Every kiss. Every "I love you." All of it rotten. The aftermath. I walked away. Left her at that cafe with the binder in front of her. Let the staff watch her crumble. By nightfall, I checked into a hotel. By the end of the week, I had a lawyer. By the end of the month, the divorce papers were signed. I thought I'd feel rage. I thought I'd feel freedom. But what I felt most was emptiness. Like I'd lived beside a ghost. And now that ghost had finally vanished, leaving only silence. The final note. Months later, I got one last message. From the same burner account that had sent me the photo months earlier. It said, "You did the right thing. Men like him collect people. She wasn't the first. She won't be the last. Walk away and never look back." No name. No clue who sent it. But I believed them. Because some patterns aren't worth solving. Some truths don't set you free. They just burn everything you thought was real. And when the fire's done, all you can do is walk out of the ashes and start again.